Hey, greetings everyone. Daniel Lowry back with another episode in our Learning Python little series that we've been working on. It's been so much fun so far. I was just thinking to myself of how much more comfortable I am becoming with Python because I'm doing all this in preparation for this series. So hopefully that is happening for you as well. That is the goal, is that you're like, I am picking up what you are putting down. This is fun. This is awesome. Just to remind us where we are is we have the BWAP here, which is a purposefully buggy web application that we're using as our test. And we're building a brute force tool to get past this wonderful little logon screen right here. I want to brute force my way through that programmatically using the Python. Of course, this is our script we have been building and working with so far. Done all sorts of fun stuff. We've learned some conditional logic. We see some try excepts. Very, very interesting. Even doing some request with the web, like right there, doing that HTTP magic with the request module. Very, very fun. We're going to build on that a little bit today by changing what we do here in this data, because we're sending information to the web app, and we need to, because here's where we're at with this, right? Is we are hard coding credentials into our application. You can see it right there. I've got login of B and password of bug, right? And that is, we know that that's the good username and password because, well, it says it right there. But that's not reality, right? In reality, there would not be a thing on the front of their website at their login form going, hey, log in using this. We would have to try to figure that out. And that's what our script is all about here. By the way, hard coding creds, super bad cybersecurity practice. That is not smart thing to do. It gets done more often than you would expect, and then it gets forgotten about, and then that gets pushed to production, and then you can look inside of people's GitHub repos, and oh, lo and behold, good news is they kind of look for that nowadays. They look for things like API keys and sensitive information and kind of let the end user know, you probably don't want to put this in there, and then it's up to them to go with it or not. That's neither here nor there. But in our script, we are doing that. I mean, and that's cool. I mean, it works. But again, we're really no better off than we are just typing it in right here over and over and over and over and over again. Because if I got to go into my script and then go, okay, well, I'm going to try, root for the user login. I'm going to try admin for the user login. I have to retype all this stuff. That is not going to fly. We need automation. We need to automate the login name being different. We need to automate the password being different. So today, we're going to learn about lists. There's a couple of other things that are like lists, like arrays and sets and tuples and things of that nature. But I think for right now, let's start with the most easy and most common thing that we end up using, which is a list. All right. There's also dictionaries, by the way. So there's a bunch of different ways in which things are very similar and kind of do the same function, but differently, and you might want to choose one or the other. Right now, list is a great place to start because the list is just, here's a list of stuff. And it can be any kind of stuff you like. It can be strings, it can be binary, it can be integers, it can be floating point, all the different little data types that Python can use. You can throw those into a list. And it's mutable, which is a fancy term for I can change the list. I can add to or take away from, modify the list. Lists are good, right? So let's go looking up lists, shall we? Oh, lists, teach me your ways. So we're going to just do a Google search for Python lists or just list. And of course, you're going to get this right here, which is the Python documentation, docs.python.org, right there under data structures. So click that. And oh, look at this loveliness. We have all sorts of amazing information on lists. This chapter will describe some of the things you've learned already in more detail and add some new things as well. So I love this. It says moron lists. It's like, is this a list of morons? I'm being funny, right? I try anyway. I would probably change this to something like more about lists, so it doesn't say moron. But moron lists makes me chuckle. We have some different things that we can do with this list thing. We can append to it, right? We can extend it, insert into it, remove stuff. It does get indexed. We can clear the list of all the items. That could be interesting. We can also look at the index right? And there's an easier way to do it. And we'll look at that here in just a second. We can reverse, we can sort, we can copy. Again, documentation is our friend, especially when it's really good documentation, which is typical to Python. It's not always, but it does happen. And here's them showing like a list of fruits. We got fruits and we open it with, so this is a very similar structure to making a variable. So fruits equals, so we're giving it a label for our list, and then we open it with a, what is that? It's a square brace or square bracket. And then we give it a list of things separated by a comma. And of course, you have to put single quotes or double quotes around the things that are in there, but that's cool. And then you can do stuff like index, you can reverse, you can sort, so on and so forth, right? And we can even look for lists based on where they're at in the list. Let me show you what I mean. Let's go to here. I've got a terminal open. I'm just going to open the IDE. So Python 3. And in here, let's create a list, shall we? It should be fun. Make it a fun list. We'll call it list 1. How about that? So list 1 equals, you know what? No, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. We're going to keep it contextual. I almost went down the road of things I hate to do, which is create a list of oranges. And not that there's anything wrong with that. God bless you, Python doc writers out there that are maintaining those documentations. You have to be generic because you don't have our context. We have a context. So let's make a login list and a password list, right? So there's login names that we need to be able to use, and we saw that, right, in our request. If we go to our request, right, we've got the data of login, and then that login name was B, or whatever we want it to be, root, admin, guest, test, so on and so forth. So let's make that same kind of list, right? Let's do this. So we'll call this login name. I like to make them very, very descriptive because login might be a little too undescriptive. So login equals, get that square bracket, and then of course we're just gonna comma separate a bunch of stuff. So I'm just gonna kind of pre-game that. Let's give it what, 5 things, or I'll go with 4. I don't want to get too crazy. Bam, close it out with that. And now whatever I put as far as names goes, so maybe I can put admin. I can come over here and put root. I can put a test, and then we'll put B because we know B is like an actual username. But of course, we would want this list to be as lengthy as humanly possible because we're trying to brute force stuff. But for test demonstration purposes, we've got to keep it short. We don't want to get too crazy. So there's our login name list. Bam. And now I can login name and give it an index. Remember, indexing typically starts with 0. So if I wanted to get admin, I would do 0. And it shows me admin is in that position in the list. I can login name, let's go 3. It should give me the last item in the list, which is B, right? And so on and so forth. You can also change the index if you like, but we don't want to get too crazy with lists right now. I just want you to understand the concept of a list and how it works. And that's pretty cool, right? I can use that. Now, if I needed it in a script and I wanted to print that out to the screen, of course, I would have to print login name of, whatever index. Let's go with 2 here because that's just fun. We haven't used that yet. And you see it prints out test because that is the second position in our list. 0, 1, 2, 3, like so on and so forth. Okay, that's pretty cool, right? We've got a list. We like the list. You know what though? We need to create another list because we're gonna need one for passwords as well. We need 2 lists. One for the usernames or the login names and another one for the passwords. So let's create another list, which is easily done, right? We know what to do here. We'll call it password. We'll call it passwords. I like that better because there are multiple of them, right? Open and then close like so, and then comma separated. Whoop, give it a space. You're going to space that like that. Do another one, and then one more for good measure. All right, let's put some passwords in there. And let's see, what's some really bad passwords? Like password, right? That's a bad password. Let's go with QWERTY. That's a stupid password that people tend to use. I don't know why. Fun fact, Neil, let's go down for one hot second the cybersecurity rabbit hole, right? Let's see here. Most common passwords of 2025. because that is the year we are. So in 2025, 123456 remains the most commonly used password. Other common passwords include password, QWERTY, and variations of these with numbers and special characters. Predictable sequences, names, and curse words also appear. Ha 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 ha. Right? So that's a little scary, right? In 2025, 123456 remains the most commonly used password. You know, I've been a cybersecurity trainer for like 10 years now. And when I first started out, you always get the funny people that think they know more or whatever, always trying to be the smartest person in the room and let everybody know that they are. You know, so Daniel, no wonder your brute force thing worked. You used a crappy password. It's like, yeah, I used a crappy. Let's pretend I didn't use a crappy password. That's not in a dictionary somewhere. Is this brute force demo going to work? No, that's right. See, I'm smart. It doesn't. I get it. I get what you're saying. I understand that, but you got to think one step past that, which is A, I have to show you a demonstration of it working, of does this actually work? B, people use dumb passwords all the time. It is the most common password, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. In 2025, 123456 remains the most commonly used password. I looked up the most common passwords of 2025. This is why cybersecurity is important. People need to learn that that is not a good idea, okay? Because apparently they don't know. Oh man, I'm getting fired up. I hope you are as well. Man, goodness gracious. So when we come in to when we're writing these dictionaries out, these lists, and they contain passwords like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. For you out there that thought, well, that's dumb. Yes, it is. That is not a smart thing to do because it's easily guessed. And yet people are still doing it. So a list like this might actually be useful. All right. I'm going to get off my soapbox now. I'll step back, breathe in, let it out. Yes. Good thoughts in, bad thoughts out. Good in, bad out. Good in, bad out. All right. Now we're back. We're back. So now we will put our actual password, which we know is bug. Okay, cool. So we've got a list, bada bing. I can do the same thing where, like I did with the login names, I can do passwords and I can give it like, oops, got to use the square braces, Dan. You don't need a shift key for that. So if I use the second key for the index, it shows me it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The crappiest of all the passwords in the world. Okay, so hopefully you're picking up what I'm putting down when it comes to lists. Lists are very cool. We like the lists. But when we're talking about brute forcing, right? If I'm trying to do a set of credentials, admin 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, admin QWERTY, admin password, admin bug, did any of those work kind of thing, I've got the list that have those things in it, but I'm still kind of at the place where, yes, I can reference those things individually, but that would be very repetitious, very repetitive. I don't know which one of those words is correct in that context, but you get the idea. We are doing it a lot. We are going to be writing a butt ton of code that is referencing what login names. So, right, like we're going to be constantly referencing login names. So we're going to be saying login name 0, passwords 1, or passwords 0, login name 0, passwords 1, login name 0, passwords 2, login name 0, and we're going to have to write code that does that over and over and over and over again. This is not the way, kids. If you watch the previous episode, we talked about refactoring and making things better. Or was that, or I forget which one, if it was the last episode or the episode before, where we make things better. And one of the things I look for in that refactoring episode, and I told you about, is repetition. Sometimes there's just no getting around repetition, but there should be some algorithmic way in which you can figure out how to get around doing the same thing over and over again, at least to a great extent. Hedging my bets, right? Hedging my bets. Edge cases are out there. They do exist. So I don't want to get into that repetitious. And guess what? There is a way in which we can easily get the computer to automate Chef's kiss. We love automation, that we can automate the process of working our way through those lists. And guess what? The computer can do it a whole lot faster using something like a loop. Loops. If you're not familiar with loops, I want you to love them. I want you to get used to them because they are great and you will love. You're getting ready to really enjoy this. So loops are helpful because they can say, hey, give me a range of things or give me a condition. And when that range is gone through or that condition is met, I'll stop. Until then, I am hammered down. I'm iterating. Get used to that word, iterating, until that happens, which means I'm doing it again. I'm doing it again. Iteration means to do it again, right? So today what we're going to use is a for loop. Where's my thing here? So let's go look up Python for loop. That is what we're going to be doing. Where's my docs? Python.org. I don't know if that's exact. I'm usually looking for the docs, but I don't see. Okay, we're going to go with that python.org one then. That looks good. Bam. And yes, for loops. When do I use for loops, right? So for loops are used for when you have a block of code in which you want to repeat a fixed number of times. Guess what? Where was it at? We have a fixed number of times. We know that there are 4 times here and 4 times here. So for each one of these things, I want to do these 4 things. So it's going to do this one, and it's going to iterate through each one of these. That's what my for loop is going to do. And then when I have this one, I want it to iterate through each one of these things. And then when that's going to iterate again. You get where we're going. Hopefully you get the idea of a for loop. And the structure is fairly straightforward. For x in range, this gives it a range, right? And then colon, kind of like what we saw here with our try, else, and if statements. You see there's colons on the end of these things. Colon, right? Just like that, we got that with the for loop. It ends in a colon. That lets it know that basically after this for statement, for this, do this stuff. And you can also see that it is indented, right? So there will be indentation done under our for loops. No keeping it in line. You got to indent after that. And cool thing is the IDE kind of does it for you. But if you're writing a script, you got to remember to do it. That's on you, player. Okay, so we want to do this, and you would just do a simple print statement. Let's see if we can make this work. Let's see if we can make this a little more useful, a little more tangible to us. So let's iterate with a for loop through the login names. All right, let's make it really simple. So I'm going to say for, and what's cool is when you saw this over here, and this, again, I love to talk about when I get confused or when I have been confused, and hopefully for those of you that are struggling with the same confusion that I went through, illuminate what's going on. This is for x in range, right? Is x like a special character? It's not. Well, I mean, it is and it's not. What we're talking about is I can make that for x. So I can use for x in, and I give it the login name. There's my range. So whereas here in their example code, they defined a range of 0 to 3, right? 0, 1, 2, and 3. We are giving it a list to iterate through, right? So our list is this. The name of that list is login name, and there are items in said list that gets represented by the name, the label login name of our list. Cool? So I can say for x in login name, colon, and go buck wild. But I don't think that that's really, and sometimes you'll see like, especially if it's numbers, you'll see for I in whatever. Typically x means it's the x, it's the variable, right? It's the whatever. I don't know what it is. It's x. You probably use that in just everyday language. You know, oh yeah, x things over here, right? If it's a range of numbers, we typically use I. So if you see for I in range, 0 through 100, then I want to get that integer, or I, is kind of what that stands for. But you can make it anything you want. You can make it for blah, blah, blah in login name. That's not really very descriptive, but it will work. It's just a little silly, right? It's a little silly. We want to use some descriptor that actually makes sense. So for here, I'm going to say for login in login names, or I could use name, right? Maybe that's more descriptive. We'll stick with that. So for name in login name, I should have called this login names, right? But whatever, it's neither here nor there. But for name in login name, we hit our colon and then we hit enter. You'll notice it indented because we're in Python's IDE, the integrated development environment. I think that's what that stands for. And so it does that for us. But if you're writing a script, you got to remember to do that. So now what do? Now we can tell it what to do. I want to print or do whatever, anything you like, you can do it. And it's just going to do it for everything you do. You got to have a reason for doing this. I don't know why you would do it for no reason. That wouldn't make any sense. But we are going to print out something. And we're going to do what we like to do. We're going to say, hey, maybe a star is better here. Hey, printing name, colon, whatever. This is just me. Or maybe something that looks cool. That's fine with me. I like it. And then I'll say name. Like that. All right, we'll close that out. So basically what it's going to do is going to run this print statement, which is going to say printing name, and then whatever name this is. Now remember, this is an iteration. That's what's happening here. So what it's going to do, it's going to say for name in login name. So when it runs this print statement, it's going to go, cool, what's the first thing in login name that we're iterating through? It's going to look at this list and go admin, and it's going to assign that value of admin to name. And then it's going to print it out because we're just calling that variable name. This is just a variable name. That's all it is. That's why you can name it anything you like. Call it anything you want. Brian Regan, Raisin Skins. That's funny. That's a funny sketch right there. A comedy bit he did, stand up. Right? We can name it anything we want. So we're just calling it name because that's very descriptive. And it's assigning the value of the first thing, right? Then once it stops, it gets that and it prints it out. It goes again because there's still stuff in that list. Until it reaches the end of the list, it will continue to run this iteration. So they'll say, cool, for name and login name, give me the next thing, which is root. And it'll run that print statement saying printing name and assign the value of root to the name variable in our for loop and print it out when we call it in our print statement. This is what's going on. And then it's going to do it again. It's going to do it with test and it's going to do it with B. So when I run this, look what it does. Printing name admin, printing name root, printing name test, printing name B. Aha. Now you're getting the idea of what a for loop can do for us. It is amazing. It did a bunch of work really quickly, right? Iterate. Good. Just bam. Made that. I didn't have to type a bunch of print statements out. I typed in one print statement and then just looped through a list of things to print. Remember, we just took a bunch of repetition and deleted it. We let the computer do it using automation. That is the power of using stuff like this. Now, this is where you thought the party was done, right? This is where you thought, oh man, that's cool. Great up, Daniel. I'm like, oh, we're not done yet. Nested loops. Nested loops. What the heck is that? I could put a loop inside a loop. I know, blew your mind. I should have warned you. Let's take a look at what that looks like. Let's get back in. So, how do you nest a loop? Well, we can take this right here, right? Same kind of idea, and I'll just kind of bring it back up. There it is. And instead of printing that name, oops, I am all over the joint. Instead of printing this out, I'm going to do another for loop. And this time I'm going to pull from passwords. So we'll call this, how about we'll call this one word in passwords. So for word in passwords, colon, we can now do whatever we want. We're going to print, and this time we can give it, hey, do that star again, just because it's fun. I like the way that looks. It just satisfies me. Just how it is. You do you though, okay? I'm going to say printing, we'll say creds, because this is what we're doing. Printing creds, do that, And then I just give it, what are we doing? We're printing out, right? So it's going to iterate just like, it's going to do the exact same thing, except this time it's going to iterate for name and login name. So it's going to grab the first thing in this list. And then I say for word in passwords. Again, could have called this anything I want, but I called it word because that seems to be a little more descriptive. And this time, so it's going to iterate, going to grab admin, then it's going to go, okay, give me the first thing in the list passwords, which is password. And now we're going to print, we're going to make a print statement that says, hey, cool, print that out. And what do you want me to print? I want it to say printing creds and print out, what was it, name? Yeah. And then comma separated and word. Close that out. So we're basically doing the exact same thing, but this time it's going to iterate to admin and then iterate through everything in that passwords list before it moves to the next item in login name. So it's going to start with this. It's going to grab the first item in login name. And then when we get to passwords, try that one, print it out, 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 and then iterate to the next thing in login names. And then iterate through this value, this value, this value, this value, and then print all those out. And then move to the next, you get the idea. So when we do this, it looks a bit like this. Yay. Well, this is fun, right? Printing creds, admin password, admin QWERTY, admin 123456, admin bug, root password, root QWERTY, root 123456, root bug. Same thing with test, same thing with B. Now you're seeing the power of the loop, right? It took a lot of repetition and stuff that we would have had to just repetitively code in, hard coded, and taking it away from us and did it for us. Did it through automation. I'm feeling good. I don't know about you, but this is what is up. All right. So we've done a lot. I want to put one more little finishing touch on this just to satisfy my soul and hopefully teach you a little something else, a little extra, a little cherry on the top of today's episode of lists and loops, as it were, right? And that is just some nice things you can learn. Like we've learned a little bit about the print statement. We're going to play a little bit around with that. Now, let's get back in because you know why? Because this is just this ugly. UGLY. It ain't got no alibi. I don't like this. And maybe I'll change this. Maybe I'll take the colon and stick it between these two things and, give another prompt here of some kind to let you know this is what's going to be there because I just think that's ugly. So what I can do is instead of prints like this, I am going to actually, let me show you because you'll be like, how do you know that, Daniel? Let's go back to prints. So we're going to look up Python prints. That should take us to not W3 Schools, documentation, input, output. No, we're looking for the built-ins. Where's the built-ins? So you know what? I need to probably do this. Give me the docs. There it is. Input and output. Oh, that's input and output. Oh, maybe this works. Let's see here. It's usually in the built-ins. Let's go for built-ins. BUILTINS. Thank you. The built-ins, and we are looking for prints. Look for prints. This is not where I'm going. Why is it not taking me where I want to go? Built-in functions. That is what I've been looking for. Bah! I don't know why. Google just was not playing well with me today. Okay, so it's in alphabetical order. OP, there it is. Print right there. Bamola. And here, we've been here before. We've looked at this. And I kind of read this and was like, blah, 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 blah. There's some really good stuff in here. At that point in time, we didn't need to get that deep in the weeds, but today we do. Especially when it comes to this little lovely thing right here. Sep equals. The sep equals area is the separator, right? It says right here, all non-keyword arguments are converted to strings like string, does and written to. This is where I was kind of blobbity-blobbing. And then it says separated by sep. Oh. And it does say sep equals. I can define what the separator value is. By default, it is a space. And that's is what's happening in our code. We're getting these spaces. That space shows up because the separator shows up. So I'm going to change what the separator is. I'm going to redefine it to what I want it to be. So I'm going to take that space out like I did. There used to be a space there. Or no, I need to add that space because that space is going to be removed because I'm changing what the separator is. So in this little, between these double quotes, I now need to add a space right there. Okay, so I'm going to add that space in. I'm also going to change this to, I mean, I guess I can go like that. That's kind of not pretty. That's also not great. How about that? Yeah, I like that. Let's go with that. All right, so from there, I now need to do name and word, and I want to put a colon between those because that is a typical way in which you see a lot of credentials as by default. So let's just kind of make it look like this. And then finally, just make sure you can see this. I want to get my head in the way. Finally, I'm going to do that sep equals, and I'm just going to give it like no value at all. And that, my friends, oops, wrong button. Hopefully, we now get a better looking output than what we had before. Fair enough. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's money. Look at that. So much better, right? This is why the documentation is our friend, kids. So I like this. This is pretty. This is what I'm used to seeing. This is how I want it to look. This is how I think most people would prefer to see it, where you have username, colon, password as a typical way to see credentials. And now our script does that. All right, so now that's we're at 31 minutes or so, almost 32. But that's cool. We had a lot to get through, loops and lists, a lot of fun. We definitely in the next episode need to take a look at how we can then apply that to our code and make that request with the requests module for that post request. We're going to add that functionality in there. So a lot more to come in the next episode, but this was a great primer so that we are set to go. And when we're typing that code into our actual script, it does something we want it to do. So definitely join me for the next episode where we add this type of logic into our code to make those requests. You don't want to miss that because we're actually going to be doing some brute forcing against our application. All right, kids, thanks for joining me today. And until next time, you know what to do. Keep hacking.